Recently, I have been bitten by the nostalgia bug, which is why I bought this online. And this is a White Dwarf I can remember getting when it originally came out back in Christmas 1997, and I was super excited about it. I was reading it on the way home. I don't even remember being blown away by a free Necron being given away with it because I was completely new at this time. So it's really fun memories for me. But something I really like about Games Workshop at this time and the White Dwarfs is that they really encouraged creativity and customization and, well, conversions for miniatures. It was something I'd often have in entire articles based around, and you get little bundle packs at the end of the White Dwarf that you could get where you can have a go yourself, but it also really encouraged you to try doing your own thing with it. Now this got Roger and me talking, and it got us looking at different cool things in 40k, because there's loads of really interesting things that are, just out of sight in the storyline, and it's definitely encouraging to have a go and explore these things with conversions. That's what we're going to do here, because this got us to the subject of Chaos Orcs. At some point we both read about these, and these are things that are actually really, really rare in 40k, but it is possible for an orc to fall to chaos without really realising what it's doing, but being all in because of the idea it makes it more killy and more dangerous. So what we've got is a storyline here for our war boss. What's going to be is a war boss who is in charge of a war, and for whatever reason he's been usurped by one of his underlings who's taken over. He's been cast out of the tribe and now wants to come back for revenge, and on his way he's found a sword that started talking to him and given him some ideas about how he could be more killy if he only just collected a few orc skulls. Do stuff like that, make you more dangerous, and before you know it he's turned red and he's even bigger and meaner than before. So we're going to make this character. Now we've got some loose ideas of how we're going to do this, but because we're going to be putting parts together in ways they're not really intended, there's going to be quite a few challenges on the way here, and so honestly I don't know how it's going to turn out. So what we're going to do is face this journey together and see what we can create. So without further ado, let's get to it. So to make our Chaos Orc Warlord, what we need to do is pick a model that's going to form the basis of it. So what I've done is have a good look around the Games Workshop website and eventually settle on a model that I think is going to be perfect. It's this one here. This is the Uruk Megaboss from Age of Sigmar, and I really like this one for the basis for it because he's bigger than a regular orc, so it's going to suit the idea that he's swollen with demonic power. Also, he's got quite interesting armor textures on there that are a little bit different, so as we start to piece this together, I think it's going to get quite a nice almost scavenger look, so perfect for what we want here. And so what we need to do is have a think about how things are going to work around this just to get some initial ideas. So what we've got is the model just here. What I want to do is use the core body as the base of it and keep that relatively unchanged around there, so the legs and the chest. Though as we get up to the body here, you can see he's got this big sort of metal jaw going around his face. Now I think that's going to obscure quite a lot, because I want to have horns and like a long tongue like how bloodletters do. So I'm going to be removing that. So it might mean changing the whole chest piece. We'll see as we go when we get to there. Now I definitely want to make sure we change the silhouette of him, because you can see he's got these large skulls and things on there. I definitely want to remove those and see if we can put something else on there. And as for his hands, well, we definitely want to make sure he's holding a demonic weapon just here. Speaking of demonic weapon, I had a good look around our bits box that we got in the studio here, and I found the perfect sprue, at least I think so. We'll see how we get on. It might be a little bit too big, but what I've got here is the leftover pieces from the demon prints that we painted a few weeks ago. The great thing about this sprue is that there is a demonic sword on it. So this is going to be our demon weapon that the orc has picked up, and this is what's possessing him. I think we could do some cool glowing effects and those runes and things that appear on the blade later on. But this sprue's also got lots of other interesting pieces. For example, we've got some horns here, which I think look pretty cool sprouting out of his head. It's like a long tongue in here. There's some hands, there's some trophy racks and things like that. So I think this is going to be really, really useful as we go forward. Now, also in the bits box, I did find this sprue here. This is a Chaos Terminator sprue, which we've not really used. It's got some really interesting trophy racks and things on it too. So I think this might come in handy, but we'll see. Now, as we go along, we might find that we need some other bits. So we're just going to, I'll have a check and see how we go. If we need any more parts, we can always have another look inside the bits box and see what there is, but I think this is going to be a good starting point. So what we need to do, going back to our mega boss for the starting area here, what I need to do is build the core of his body. So we're looking at the legs and the waist here. So what I'm going to do is build that up, then we can see what we can do from there. I've glued the legs together and put them down on the base so everything's nice and stable, so a good platform to build the rest of our conversion on. And it means the next thing is going to be to have to build up the waist and also the chest, because if we take a look at the pieces that this is all based upon, what we've got are these two parts right here. And you can see what they do is fit together in the middle right there, and then this assembly drops down onto the legs right there. So we've got a few parts that are actually integral to the waist here. It goes into the arms and everything. Now I do know that what I want to do is put the shoulder pads that are the Chaos Space Marine style ones from the Demon Prince. I want to put them on the shoulders just here. So I think this is going to get in the way, but we won't find out until we glue this together and then dry fit the shoulders and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is stick this together now with a bit of super glue, cut out the shoulder pads, get them ready, and then we'll find out if they fit. Okay, so here I've got the center of the body all put together now, and I've also assembled both shoulder plates, so you can see them just here, and I've made sure to use the cornate icon on that shoulder just there because it is going to be a corn style orc just here. And the idea is that these shoulder plates are going to be fitting up here, and you can see it's a fairly good fit already. Now there is a bit of a catch on it because what we've got inside there is that little peg, that's getting in the way, so we are definitely going to have to remove that later on. But as I place it here, you can see now these big gaps underneath the chest plate are really showing through. So before we can actually put this on, we've got to find out how that chest piece is going to settle, which brings us to the next part that we've got to check on this, which is that chest piece. And you can see this part is absolutely huge and actually covers up the vast majority of the front of the miniature. It's a really, really big part, this one. And if you remember back at the start here, we were talking about how we wanted to change the silhouette by removing the skulls. Definitely want to get that iron jaw out of the way. And these shoulders are going to get in the way of the shoulder plates we want to put on there. So now what we need to do is actually quite a bit of surgery on this part, because what we're going to do is core it right down to being just that chest piece just there. Now this is going to involve a little bit of cutting, so what I need to do is get a hold of some sharp clippers, and with this we're going to start by cutting off one of the shoulder plates, so basically cutting and clipping away near to it there like that. And then we need to go for the other shoulder too, which has got that big skull on it, so once again I just want to start cutting through to make sure I remove the vast majority of that part there. We've then got the iron jaw, and it's going to be the same process here, again just cutting away the vast majority with the clippers just to make sure it's moved out of the way. And it's going to bring us right down to that chest piece. Now this is a bit messy, so now it needs to be cleaned up, so I'm going to be using a file mostly here. Might need a knife as well, but the idea here is just to start removing this and cleaning it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the neater it is here, the easier it's going to be as we move forward and start to tidy things up as the model goes together. Okay, and here we have the chest plate with all those extra details cut off and cleaned away. And I was careful just to make sure we kept that little leather strap just there, because this connects to another strap that has skulls and things hanging from it, which of course are perfect for the theme here, so I want to keep that on there. But what we want to do as well is just make sure we keep hold of the parts we clipped off. So for example, this remains of the shoulder plate just here, the chainmail hanging from it. That chainmail might come in useful later on, I'm not really sure, but we'll see. So it's a good idea just to keep it on hand just in case. But what we now need to do is dry fit things to see how it's all going. So if we've got the body just here, the chest plate is going to fit on here. We just need to make sure it's located correctly, so there like that. And then the shoulder for this side is going to go over here, and the fit's looking pretty good. Still going to have to get rid of that little tab on the inside there, but it's looking good at this stage. But if we look around the back, once again, we've got a great big gap there. So what we now need to do is just address that and see how that's going to get filled in as we put some armor on there. So that means we've got to take a look at the part that goes on there. This is a lot like the chest piece, where it's another great big part. So this is it right here, and you can see what it does is just locks over the back of the miniature. So it goes on there. Now these shoulder plates are again going to get in the way, so now what we have to do is remove those before we can proceed. So like with that chest piece, what we've got to do is clip them away with the sharp clippers. So we'll start out with that shoulder plate that's a bit more open, so make sure we remove that. Once that's removed, we can then go on to the shoulder that has the big skull on it, so again clip that away. And with them both removed, it's once again time to use the file to clean things up. Now this piece has been cleaned up and cut down. What we can do is just check the fit, and this is going to go on top right here. So with that prepared, I think we're now at the point where we can start gluing these bits onto the body and move on to those shoulder plates. But looking at this, there's an order I think this has to be done, because if we go back to the body just here, see this bit here, this has to be cut away for the shoulder plate to go over it, and this forms one of the main supports for this top of the body right here. So I think it's going to be important that I glue this on first of all to make sure that's nice and secure before that's cut away. So I'm going to glue this on, glue on the chest piece, then cut that off, and then we can start working on those shoulder plates and getting them on there. The armour's now stuck on, that extra bit of shoulder has been removed, and the shoulder plates fit pretty nicely. Now I have cleared them out a little bit on the inside just to make sure they sit quite nice. You can see that one goes on very well there, and this one goes on just here. And there's still a few little gaps and things which I think could be filled with some green stuff, or a little bit of trimming on the plastic might make it fit a bit more flush. But before I do any of that, it just brings me to the arm here, because originally with the idea of this, we were thinking it'd be quite cool one of the arms was demonic. And so looking at the sprues that we got from the demon prints there, we do actually have a pretty cool demonic arm. And it is this one here. Just built it up. Not put the hand on just yet, because we might use a demon hand or an orc hand. Not sure yet. But it has a gun on the back of it, which we think could be really cool to be a big shooter that's like melded into his arm. I might stick some magazines on it or something like that later to make it look a bit more orky. But this arm would work really well for this. So what I'm going to do is replace the left arm on our orc with this demon one. Now doing this means that what we're going to do is basically put it on there, but you can see if I was just cut this off and then stick that on, the contact point is going to be really small and it's going to be quite weak. So I think it'd be better if we get the shoulder plate on there first and then basically glue this underneath so it's sticking on the inside of that shoulder plate. So that's what we need to do now. So it's going to be time for a deep breath, because now what I'm going to do is clip off that arm. So first of all, using those sharp cutters once again, I'm just going to cut this away, and then with the file make sure it's clean so it's nice and tidy. Then it's time to glue on that shoulder plate, and with that stuck on, it's then time to glue that arm on the underside. So just in there. The glue is dry and the arm is stuck on, and you can see it works out really well and actually fits surprisingly well, especially with these cables at the back here, which fit really nicely with the back of the body. Now there are a few small gaps which I'll fill in with some green stuff later on, or maybe some extra little bits of chainmail or something like that, but I think it works well as a mutated big shooter. Just put the orc's hand on there in the end just to continue through that orc theme so it's not entirely demonic in this region. But next thing to do is the other shoulder plate, and this one's going to be a nice easy fit. All we need to do is glue this right on here. And here we go, both shoulder plates are glued on and things are really working well. And you know, it occurs to me we've actually been really lucky with this demon print sprue, and we are only using the spare parts having done the demon prints for a video previously, so it's only the leftover bits and pieces, but they're fitting really well here. We're going to use them a little bit more now as we move on to the next part, because now it's time to work on his head. Now here what I thought would be really cool is to bring in a little bit of the cornate demon feel that you have with bloodletters, in that they have that long flickering tongue that takes the blood in the air. It'd be really cool to do that with this guy too. So what we're going to do is take a look at that now, and you can see there is already a tongue just on the stump right there. What happens is you put his head on top and the tongue shows through. But instead what we thought we'd do is get another piece from the demon print sprue that looks like that long flicking tongue. And I think this part is designed to be the end of a tail. It's this bit right here, but you see if I thread that through his mouth, that looks perfect. It's really creepy and just like a blood letter. So what we want to do is replace the tongue with that. So to do this, what we're going to do is start out by making a nice surface to glue this on the actual tongue that's on the head. So with a file, we just need to file it so it's a little bit flat. With that done, we can then glue on the head, and then it's time to take the tongue and just remove the end of it so it's nice and flat and stick that directly into the mouth. Now that tongue's glued on, it's got just the sort of look I was going for, but I can see just at the base of it, a little bit of green stuffing is going to be necessary to blend those two tongues together, but I think that looks really creepy and works nicely. So this brings us to the next thing, which is going to be the horns that appear on his head. So the ones we picked out are once again from the demon prints. It's these ones just here, and the plan is to have them on here. Now at this point, you'll notice, well, something occurred to us when we started looking at this, and that he's actually starting to look a bit like Hellboy, which, also being an orc, is the perfect name for him. So he's now going to be called Da Hellboy. So anyway, what we want to do is get these horns on there. Now, initially, it's going to look a little bit strange to get them to fit because they are quite large. So again, some green stuff is going to be necessary to blend things in later, I think. But the trick to it is going to be to get them ready. So what I'm going to do is start out by cutting the central bar out. So that's going to be this bit here. Then just adjusting the base of them to make them fit the head nicely. And then once that's done, just be a matter of gluing them on. The Hellboy's now got some horns, and so they're glued on there nicely. I trimmed them down a little bit to make them fit because they were quite wide at the base, and actually they fit on better than I expected them to. Now a little bit of green stuffing is still going to be necessary just to blend them in, but I'll come back to that later on because I want to carry on building everything first of all. The next thing is going to be a trophy rack, which I think will work really well for Chaos. Definitely fits the theme as well for orcs too. That's going to be on the top of the armour just here, and for this what I did was take a look at the Terminator sprue, because Terminators on Chaos, they have these trophy racks on the back, and in that kit you get some extras. So I've cut out two of those. I've specifically picked these ones right here because these are just like bent iron bars as if they just sprouted it out the back. So what I'm going to do is put these on the back. Just like with a Terminator, I'm going to have one on either side. So I'm going to glue one on this side just along there, then another one along here. Now those racks are glued on. I think he's really looking the part of an orc that's gone wrong somewhere, but now what we need to do is go for the major feature just here. It's time to glue on that demonic sword. Now the one I'm using here is that spare one from the demon print sprue once again. It's this one right here, so absolutely perfect. The hand's about the right size too, but for something like this, the first thing we've got to do is check the fit, because what it needs to do is just sit in right there. Now at the moment, it's not sitting right because I can feel there's just too much plastic on the back of the hand there, so what we've got to do is remove some of that. Now when it comes to something like this, where you're you've really only got one part and you don't want to mess it up, what you need to do is just steadily work away at this and have some patience. So what I do is just get a file and just gradually start removing the excess material, and just remove a little bit of it, then test the fit to see if it fits. And if not, it's time to go back to the file and just remove a little bit more, and basically just whittle away at it like this until it fits nicely. Then it's time to glue it on. Now that demonic sword is securely glued on. You can see the characters really coming together, and there are a few little things that we need to do still, so a few little bits I want to stick on still. But at this stage, I think it's a good idea to do the green stuffing, start filling in those gaps. And so what we now need to do is get that green stuff ready. So I've got a stick of it just here, and to use this sort of thing, what you're going to need first of all is a sculpting tool, and I've got one just here. Now these will usually have a more bladed side, and it's not sharp, but it's useful for cutting the green stuff to begin with. And on the other side, you'll normally have more of a spatula side, so you can use this to start pushing it around. So ideal sort of tool, this one. And with it, what we need to do is cut some green stuff first of all. So what I'm going to do is just cut a little slice of it out just along here. So what we're going to do is press it in and remove that there. Now generally it's a good idea to have more yellow than blue, because this makes it a little bit more pliable. You can see generally you do tend to get a little bit more yellow than blue, so that's perfect. Once you've got it cut out, the next thing to do is to remove this central part where the two are touching, because just there, a little sliver of it's cured. So we need to make sure we remove that, because that will show up when we start sculpting with it. So just slice that out, and there we go. And with that cut out, the next thing to do is start mashing it together until it turns into an even green. I've got the ball of green stuff nicely mixed now, so it's time to put it onto the miniature. So to do this, what we need to do is just break off some that we think we're going to need for the area we're doing. I'm going to start out with the horns, for which we don't need very much, just a thin sliver there like that to begin with. It's going to roll it into a little sausage and then put it roughly where it needs to go on the miniature. So in our case, just here, that means just poking it in on top of the head and just draping it in that area roughly there like that. Now green stuff is quite sticky, so even though it's not in the ideal position just now, as we start poking it with a tool, it'll stick to the tool. So what we need to do is just find a way of avoiding that. What I like to do for that is to use some of this, just some E45 cream. This is great for it. What we need to do with this is just get a little bit on your finger, so you don't need very much, just a small amount will do just fine. And then on your sculpting tool, all you need to do is just put it onto the surface that's going to be touching the green stuff. So on this side, for example, just make sure we worked on there, just so it's got a thin film coating on it. And then we're ready to go. And with this, all we've got to do now is start pushing around the green stuff into position. So I'm going to be starting on the horns up here, starting on this side. It's just a matter of just making sure we press it down into that gap so it really starts to blend in between the two. So I'm just starting out by just forcing it right into that recess going along there. And then it's just a matter of working away at it until it's nice and smooth. So it's working around there, and then I can bring this one around to do the other side too. Let's get it down in there like that. So I just need to green stuff the horns, and then I'm mainly going to be looking out for large gaps in the miniature too, and just filling them in with this and then smoothing it out as well as just keeping an eye out for any small little gaps that might appear around the miniature. And here we have the model with that green stuff applied. You can see I've just applied it around those horns to meld it in just there. And if we look around towards the mouth just here, I've melded in that tongue there with a little bit of green stuff on the inside. I've also done these bits of armor where we had gaps where I've just sort of loosely sculpted to match the armor plate surrounding it. And the same is true on the back by just melding those pipes in just there and this little gap that we had right there. Now I've also done a little bit more on the shooter here because I wanted to give it more of the impression that it was an AUG gun, that the demon's grown around. So I've added some magazines sticking out the side, so it's got lots of bullets to shoot stuff with. We've got a gun sight here so we can see what he's shooting, and we've also got a little muzzle inside the demon mouth just there to be a muzzle of a gun that's going to be even louder than it would otherwise be. So proper Orky style gun now. So with that done, it's looking great. I'm really happy with it, but we need to take it a little bit further. So there's one more thing that we need to do. There we go, that's more like it. He's now been undercoated grey, and so everything is the same colour, and you can see it looks all nice, neat and tidy now. And so, well, it's time to paint him. Now, if you want to see us paint this miniature, then be sure to let us know in the comments below. And also, if you haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell as well. Now, in this video, you saw us do quite an extensive conversion, but as you've seen, it's really fun doing something like this, to just get some spare pieces, get a core model, and just have a go and see what you can create. So if you fancy having a go at this, just remember to have a loose plan in mind, but remember, it is an organic process, so don't be afraid to experiment as you go along. So, hope this has inspired you. See you again very soon.